Hey, everybody. Welcome to tonight's late night happy hour. Brian Kamenetzky and Andy Kamenetzky on a night where the Dodgers win their first World Series title since 1988. Woo, it's been a while. On a night like this, you got to bring in a guy who loves baseball, and that is Roger Lodge, host of the Sports Lodge every afternoon on AM 830. And just think he's a guy who's seen things and done things and perfect guest.
Perspective.
How you doing, man? Good to see you.
I'm all about the perspective tonight. Guys, how great is this? The first one in 32 years, and you got to feel good for guys like Clayton Kershaw, who's not only an amazing baseball player, but he's got, that playoff thing. He's got the monkey off his back. He's one of the great young men. He and his wife, I don't know if you guys are aware of this or not, but he and his wife do so many amazing things. I'm just thrilled for young men like that. I'm thrilled for Dino Ebel, the Dodgers third base coach, who was with my Halos for a long, long time. It's a great night for Dodger baseball, no question about it.
So did you catch the look? Like Fox showed the replay of Kershaw coming out. I think it was a ball, whatever it was, but just you could see the weight just lifted off of him. Such a good feeling, especially in contrast to that picture, which is one of the greatest sports pictures I've ever seen of him in the dugout last year, just
as I tweeted out in Richard Nixon voice, you won't have Kershaw to kick around anymore. Like you need to look for somebody else at this point because Kershaw.
And how about John Smoltz on the broadcast, a guy who has been where Kershaw has been, and he took us through that narrative and said, you have no idea what this feels like unless you've been there like he has. And for Kershaw to have that feeling tonight is absolutely fantastic.
So much to get into tonight because, first World Series since 88. There's a whole day. Kershaw, Corey Seager was amazing. I'm legitimately was kind of concerned about Rob Manfred's health at the end of this thing. There's the Justin Turner COVID thing, which is weird. I think is going to require at least some sort of explanation.
Yeah.
But let's start with the game itself because the beginning of this thing looked like it was going to be a disaster. Gonsolin gives up the quick home run to Rosarena and, more base runners. He's out of the game in an inning and 2/3, I think it was. That looked like it was going to be a disaster, but you look up a few innings later, Roger, and it's still, they've only got one run. And Tampa had to be kicking themselves over this.
And the fact that Gonsolin, he gives up the home run, but that was it. Dylan Floro came in, was terrific. Alex Wood threw 2 perfect innings. A shout out to Alex Wood. And then Pedro Gasoline Can Baez came in and was actually good tonight. Victor Gonzalez was good. Brewster Gretterall. And then Julio Urias at the end of the game reminded me a lot. Remember when the Angels won it in 2002? By the way, it's the anniversary. They won it 18 years ago tonight. But anyway.
Okay, we get it. You got to throw the Angels in there. We understand, Roger.
That's 2, Roger. And the show's only been on for 3 minutes.
The third, you start paying
Dino Ebel in there. And the 18th anniversary of the title.
Urias was very Frankie Rodriguez tonight.
Yeah.
Just pitched like a veteran. He pitched like a man. And you know what? You guys know this. You've been around sports long enough. Certain guys are just ball players. Julio Urias, and how about the fact his dad is home in Mexico watching his 24-year-old son. He's hanging on every single pitch he threw. But Urias, he was flat out fantastic tonight.
Well, the thing that I think is really exciting about Urias, beyond the fact that he just pitched so well, and that final strikeout is going to be something that is going to be remembered by Dodger fans from now until the end of time.
Yep.
He's been somebody that I've always wondered how much confidence Dave Roberts and really the organization had in him, because there'd always been this talk about him either being a starter in high leverage moments or a reliever in high leverage moments, and it wasn't happening. Each year he was either having arm troubles or they were using so much kid gloves with him. He was never in those moments. This year, there are a lot of different breakout stories. Corey Seager, Mookie Betts' first season with the Dodgers, Cody Bellinger, as things went along. But you're going to remember this, I think, as the year Julio Urias really introduced himself as a Dodger.
Yeah, he broke out. And tonight, you're absolutely right. People are going to remember this performance tonight forever in Dodger lore. And how about this little question as you're watching Game 6 of the World Series tonight? And like I say, we saw Gonsolin and Floro and Wood and Baez, Gonzalez, Gradwell, and Urias. Has Kenley Jansen thrown his last pitch for the Dodgers? How would you guys respond to that?
I don't think so. We were talking about that with JP Hornstra yesterday. And we've asked basically anybody who comes on talking about the Dodgers. We asked
John Weissman as well.
Yeah. And Bergman when he was on, and everybody seems to think no. But the question is what does he look like when he comes in? I mean, Urias is going back into the starting rotation. It's not you turn him into the closer. But is it Gratterall? Do you keep Trinan around next year? There's so much to think about with where these guys go, and all that. But that ninth inning was art. I mean, it was I always saw a lot of people in my timeline, and our timeline, Andy, was like, how do you not swing? You go down, you strike out looking you can't hit those pitches. Yeah. Guys coming in painting the inside corner at 96, you're not going to hit that pitch.
Even if there's
sometimes you're just better.
You're just breaking a bat. But how about this? Here's the biggest question and the biggest decision that the Dodgers have moving forward. When they're cutting up their playoff shares, do they include Tampa Bay manager Kevin Cash to get a full World Series chair? What was he thinking taking Blake Snell out of that ball game, fellas?
If you had placed, because there's prop bets for everything in Vegas. Yeah. If you had placed, $100 on a prop bet that Austin Barnes would be the guy that knocks Blake Snell out of this game, you'd walk away from that $100 bet with at least $100,000. Yeah. Nobody would have seen that. Austin Barnes, Austin Barnes. I guess maybe you could look at that and say, okay, Austin Barnes just got a hit. Maybe that would be enough to shake you. Maybe that would actually be enough to shake Kevin Cash, that Barnes is the guy. Because he's not a hitter, but wasn't that his second hit that Snell had given up to that point?
2 hits in the game. He had thrown 73 pitches. His stuff tonight was at a whole different level than any time before in the postseason from him. Here's the thing that drove me nuts. You're taking Blake Snell out of the game and you're bringing in Nick Anderson, who, God bless him, now has the postseason record for allowing a run in 7 consecutive outings. And you take him out because Mookie's coming up, who had only hit 200 this season against left-handers, came into the game tonight hitting 227 in the World Series, and he hadn't done a thing against.
It was legit shocking. And this is something, and I don't mean this, to be a backhanded compliment or to, try to take a cheap shot at somebody.
I feel like there's a butt coming.
No, but it's something that Dodger fans will understand because he's been under the microscope for it so much. This is the type of decision that Dodger fans expect Dave Roberts to make, in terms of bullpen management, when you take a guy out, the idea that, for example, keeping Julio Urias in as long as he did. I think there were Dodger fans nervous that Dave Roberts might overthink it or see some type of matchup or analytics or whatever, as opposed to just keep the guy in that's throwing. The idea of pulling Blake Snell in that moment, I was just jaw-dropped.
I couldn't believe it. I could not believe it.
Again, let me equate it to this. Remember back when we were single and you'd go to a party in high school or maybe your college, and that really hot cheerleader or young lady that you've been dying to talk to, you knew she was going to be there. When you get to the party and there's some dork hanging around there, just can't get rid of this guy, okay? And he finally leaves the party, and you're the happiest guy there. That's Mookie Betts tonight when Blake Snell was taken out of the game. Nobody in that ballpark was happier to see Blake Snell leave the game than Mookie Betts.
It was like, Roger, I'm sure you heard it. And he got better at answering the question. He was asked 6 times as the post game went along. But when Seager, the first time Seager was asked, what was your reaction when they took Snell out? And I think this was on Spectrum. he referred to it as like, he referred to Snell stuff as gross, like in like a good way. It was like the most complimentary way. It's like, we couldn't believe it.
Bellinger was asked about it afterwards on Fox.
It was
and he
Bellinger.
said-
I'm sorry. It was Bellinger. Right.
He
Thank
said,
you.
I was shocked. And by the way, Jay Franco G says, not sure all people's single life is the same as Rogers.
I certainly sympathize with the dork who was around the hot girl. Wasn't going anywhere. I mean, that part I recognize. It was just, I mean, I realize this is what Tampa has done all season long. They've leaned on their bullpen. But at this point in a series, like, you're up 1-0. The guy who gave up one hit, and you're already going to go deep into your bullpen. It's been like, nothing about this decision made any sense.
It fell apart
at all.
So quickly.
And
it's not like it fell apart the next inning where you're thinking about, okay, maybe you go one more. It immediately blew up. Literally the next batter, it blew up.
Inside the line and down, inside the bag and down the line, a double for Mookie Betts. I mean, it's unbelievable. Unbelievable. And this will hang over Kevin Cash's head for a long time. It's Dusty Baker, Russ Ortiz all over again.
Yeah. I mean, and Kevin Cash is a good manager.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing about this is it's not like the Rays.
He took a team with a collective payroll of $78 to the World Series.
Like, it's not like you look at the Rays and go, oh, wow, they've been winning in spite of their manager.
But
he's a good manager.
But here's the thing that drives me nuts. Baseball is such a feel game. The manager has to have a feel for how the game is going. And you would think Kevin Cash would have had a better feel for his own guy tonight in Blake Snell, but he just didn't have that feel tonight. And it was Blake Snell's night. It was clearly his night.
I was going to say, what's the feel? The guy giving up a second hit.
Let him get into a jam before you pull him.
Yeah, exactly. Let him get into a little bit of trouble. But and the other thing is they're saying on the broadcast, well, this is the formula. This is what the Rays do during the regular. This isn't the regular season.
Nope.
This is the postseason where everything is different.
I think one of the things that's sort of underrated in fact, because you go through, and we talked about this at the beginning of the series, and this is something that I might have been Bergman, it might have been JP, it might have been you, Andy, that made a good baseball point. Like the Dodgers weren't the team that was expected to win the game like this tonight, where they throw the bullpen game and it's Gonsolin for an inning and 2/3 and you're cobbling it together and all that kind of stuff. That's what you would expect from Tampa. Like the role reversal here, in terms of how these games were played out, it was, Tampa that started the conventional starters and like it didn't work out the way it was supposed to. But I can't, and I don't want to take stuff. I don't want to make it about like what the Dodgers did or didn't do. Where like they were given a gift. Yep. They were flat out gifted the opportunity to win this game. And, after that, the Rays relievers pitched fine. It wasn't a big deal. And, they gave up the homer in the ninth, the best. But, he wouldn't have been in the game at that point. They were given it. And to their credit, they took advantage.
You're not going to beat the Dodgers scoring one run. But
correct.
I had the feeling late in that game when Snell was still in there. I kept saying to myself, the only chance the Rays have to get this to a Game 7 is if Blake Snell pitches a 1-0 victory tonight. And of course that all came out unglued when he yanked it. But Kevin Cash has got some explaining to do, and I'm sure he's already done it, but I can't wait to hear his theory.
Yeah. I saw somebody note on Twitter that they really wish, for all the multitude of reasons that we wish this pandemic was over, you really wish the pandemic was over just so you could see Kevin Cash's entire face. Like at the moment when it fell apart, like just to see his entire facial expression, because for better or for worse, these are the moments you remember, and you only see, his eyes, which revealed a lot, but the entire facial expression would have been pretty amazing.
And I don't know about you guys, but when they had the close up at the end of the game of Corey Seager, and think about this, he's in his early 20s. He's the World Series MVP. And they should have shown it again in slow motion when he took his helmet off. And that's first team all hair. And you know darn well he got himself a Head and Shoulders commercial tonight out of this World Series MVP.
You know what, though? On this particular team, he's got competition.
Sure he does.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of attention paid for Cody Bellinger's hair. you know, particularly with that headband. It's glorious. Clayton Kershaw has had that thing going for a
he's got quality
long,
hair.
long time. I mean, it might be somewhat goofy looking, but Dustin May's hair
okay,
is
that
by
was my
any
question.
objective measure is great.
This is really a test of whether or not you are sort of have an anti-ginger bias, because you're right. Just in terms of quantity, volume, the ability even just to stuff all that shit into a hat, it's impressive. But it's goofy looking. I mean, it is.
I don't think anybody has seen Carrot Top and Dustin May in the same room at the same time. I got my suspicions there. But Dustin May, that hair is just glorious.
I mean, Gonsolin's got good hair. I mean, there's a lot of hair competition on that team. You might be premature, Roger, in just giving this to Seager. He's a World Series MVP, and I'm not going to take that away from him. But you know, you got to walk before you run with this particular group.
I do want to give credit to what I think might be the tweet of the night regarding Kevin Cash and Blake Snell from Will Brinson, NFL writer at CBS, host of the Pick Six podcast. That basically just said, oh no, I got off it so I could read his profile properly. Kevin Cash trying to leak a report that Blake Snell had a positive COVID test too. like maybe that's the reason he could sneak it in there. Like, it wasn't me. I had to pull him. He's full of the COVID.
Hey, guys, how about this? Even before any of this postseason started or any baseball whatsoever, you go back to March when they shut down spring training. And we were all just hoping and praying that we'd get some baseball in, some games to watch. And these guys got all the way through to a World Series. And yeah, a lot of players involved. But think about not only hundreds, but the thousands of people that worked around the clock to bring us baseball games. And the fact that we got this far, my hat's off to
it's amazing.
Especially when you consider the start. Like the first month of baseball, you're like, there's no way in hell this is going to happen.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, the Marlins were a hotspot, like to themselves. They were a human hotspot. Like they're like the equivalent of the White House right now. I mean, like that.
And they made it to the postseason after
yes. I mean, it was unbelievable. But like the Cardinals also had their issues and they managed to get to the playoffs.
I wonder too. I wonder if the severity of the Marlins outbreak actually kind of saved some of the season, because if like one or two guys here, one or two guys there, it doesn't seem like it's a big deal. When every Marlin anywhere like gets COVID, like actual fish were getting COVID from that team. I think that sort of it reinforced like how seriously everybody.
It's an interesting way of looking at it. I never thought about that.
And like the NFL, I some of the stuff with Titans and
the Raiders.
You've seen just enough of it to where guys really understand like this stuff can spread really fast, particularly in football. There's not, baseball, the gymnastics they did to get some of these games in, not everybody plays the same. You play 73 games in 4 days, whatever you have to do. Like you can't do that in football. There is no flexibility because you only play once a week. I think that actually helped. And plus at the time, it seemed like it was the most disposable team out there in the Marlins. And you're right. They had the playoffs.
Can I ask you guys a question? Can I play host for a minute?
Sure.
Because I mentioned how thrilled I was for a great guy like Clayton Kershaw and Dino Ebel, who was the third base coach for my Halos for a long time. Who's the guy in Major League Baseball? Is there a guy that you root for, and it's for a reason nobody really knows, but you know the reason, and that's why you like? I hope
that's a good question.
I hope Don Mattingly never loses a baseball game ever again, and I'll tell you why in a minute. But is there someone that you can think of that you just really root for in baseball, and it's for a whole different reason?
I mean, the obvious one is Kershaw, because everyone roots for Kershaw.
Yeah,
I'm trying to. It's been a few years since I've been around the Dodgers or around a baseball team enough.
I mean, for a while for me, it was either Puig or Matt Kemp, because I thought both, for very different reasons, took more crap than they deserved. I mean, and to be fair, like Puig, by a lot of accounts, could be a pain in the ass in the clubhouse. And there were accountability issues that were on him, that he had been in the league long enough that at some point it's on you to figure out how to do certain things. It's on you to figure out how not to alienate teammates.
Right.
But I also think that there was a period where as he was acclimating himself to, not just baseball, but to America, to this completely, harrowing experience that he went through just to get to America. And then, the things that we learned about that have been happening after the fact, there was a lot going on with Puig. And during that period, I think he was enabled too much for his own good by the Dodgers. But that being said, there was something so much fun about Puig when he was really on, in that energy. And, for a couple of years, I actually thought the Dodgers missed him. Maybe I wouldn't have wanted to share a clubhouse with him, but I was rooting for him to figure it out. And then Matt Kemp for a long time, and this was during a period when Brian and I covered the team, I just thought he was unfairly cast as the villain. And there was a lot of different things that I think went into that. As baseball is a sport that I think a lot of the older guard media has not quite figured out some of the racial elements, and particularly covering young black players. And Matt Kemp, I think for some of them was, a little too hip hop, a little too cool in their minds. And they wanted to see him more contrite and humble in ways that I just didn't think were fair. In a lot of ways, I just thought were petty. And I really liked Matt, and I rooted for him and for his success. And I thought it was really fun, actually, the year that he came back to the Dodgers. So those are the two guys off the top of my head.
Those are pretty good, Andy. How about you, Brian? Got one?
I'm still trying to think. Like, it's what I think is great about that question is it's a reminder that, like, you, not that I will as a matter of policy, always, like I said, I do not know any of these people. I don't know them like in any like real way that, I've never hung out with them. And, even if you sit down, you do a few interviews, you write a story, you do whatever, you still don't know these guys. Some people do. I don't. You understand, like, I think the Puig thing is a great example. You learn to understand, like, there's always something going on here. There's always like a little bit more to a story, like before. And I think this is a lesson that obviously all of us, especially right now, Roger, can be carrying around. It's like, you don't know what's going on in somebody's life. You don't know what somebody's background is, how they got from point A to point B.
Right.
And particularly in sports, we feel like as sports fans, because we buy tickets, because we, spend our money to watch them go do what it is that they do, that we have a right to just, whether it's to invade their space, to invade their privacy, to judge them in ways we would never judge our accountant or our plumber or, anybody. These are people. They're extraordinary people often, but they're still people, and they have stories. Sometimes they're assholes. They just are. I mean, sometimes the people you meet at the grocery store are. But I mean, Kershaw's the one that sticks out. I remember with the Lakers, you're around the team long enough. A lot of the times it's the people in the front office that you get to know. You root for the people making decisions and all that kind of stuff. I will say this is an incredibly likable team. The LA has had now two in the space of a few weeks, two really likable teams win titles.
It looked like those Lakers were all on the same page, and everyone got along, and there was a brotherhood down in the bubble. That was a really cool thing.
It started, we're around that team a lot. It started from minute one. Like, they are among the most connected, close teams I've ever been around in any sport, much less the Lakers. And they were extremely enjoyable to cover. They just had a great energy to be around. Like, you enjoyed talking with these guys after practice. You enjoyed, as much as anybody can enjoy being in a scrum, feeling like you're just cattle, waiting around for guys to show. I mean, you've done it. If there's one good thing, and it may only be one good thing that came from this pandemic and the way it changed sports, it was the realization that there's a better way to do post game, and there's a better way to do all of this stuff than the way we had been doing it before, which was just cram as many people as possible around one person, which with as little space as anybody can have.
Right.
It's awful.
Who often arrives at that location naked because they have to,
wearing a towel.
There's nothing about it that it isn't even awkward for everyone.
Yeah, I think we all learned there's a better way to do this, and there's certain, I remember the last few games before the NBA shut down, there were already COVID measures in place, and we were no longer going into the locker room. They were setting up like these post games in one of the side rooms, and we were going to the locker room less. But there was still that period where we were in there and we were crammed, even though they were keeping us away.
Right. The players were distanced from us, but we were not distanced from each other.
Right. And you're sitting there going like, what is going on? Like, like clearly if there are measures being taken to protect these guys, what the hell are we doing? Like, why are we all in this building? Like, I remember the last 3 or 4 games before the shutdown, I was so self-conscious of everybody around us. Like there's a great episode. Oh yeah. There's a great episode of The Simpsons where Mr. Burns basically devolves into Howard Hughes during the super germ-phobic phase when he was like living in his home and growing his nails out the jars. Yeah, peeing in the jars and growing out his nails the size of like Wolverine, you know, when Hugh Jackman was playing him. And he starts seeing everybody as just human germs. And that's the way I was seeing everybody inside Staples Center. And we're seeing these measures taken to protect the players. But in the meantime, I'm in a building with like 30,000 people in it. I'm like, this is a fucking joke. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing here?
It was funny too, you know, Roger, because like you start to cover these things. Well, it could be the last one in 6 months. What if I have to show up? But like then you go home and you think about, well, wait a minute. If it's the last one in 6 months, why do I need to show up? So
hey guys,
part of the craft.
Give me the interview that you did with someone in person, and it just didn't go well. The guy was a total jerk. For me, Willie Mays didn't go well.
Really?
Oh, no.
Who's your Willie Mays?
Oh no! That's
many
just
Willie Mazes.
That's just depressing to hear.
I had some bad experiences. God, who was the guy? Like a lot of it goes back to Dodger. Baseball players for me have always been, though. The basketball guys I really haven't. But I remember like it's like the Brett Tomkos of the world.
Yeah.
Oh my God, who was it in the Angels clubhouse? This is one of the first times.
Oh no!
I got into. It was one of the first times I was ever in a clubhouse, and so I technically didn't really totally know what I was doing. But I got too close to one of the couches that they sit on. And somebody from somewhere in the locker room, one of the players, I just heard, "Don't lean on that couch."
Whoa.
And I was like, whoa, okay, will not be. And I just like shrank back into the corner. I'm trying. I don't know who that voice was. Like that wasn't good. I wouldn't even interview. It's still kind of scary.
Okay, I can think of a couple times where these were not I've been fortunate enough. I've not had too many formal.
The biggest jerk. Andy, who's the guy who yelled at you?
I was about to get to that.
Okay. Andy Ashby.
Yes. Andy Ashby yelled at me in the Dodger club. I was doing, I don't even remember what I was doing, but I was waiting for a specific player. And it was like one of those times where you're just waiting and there's nobody in there. And it came down, basically, it was just me and Andy Ashby. And I'm just like waiting. And finally he looks over at me and goes, "Can I help you?"
Wow.
And I'm like,
wow.
No, I'm just waiting for somebody. Well, you know, you've been just kind of hanging out in here. I just want to see if I can help you out. And I'm like, no, I needed to talk to somebody and it's not you. So I'm just here.
And he do.
Yeah. And he just, every couple of minutes, he's like, "You're still here?" Like I'm like, Jesus, dude. Like
shut up, Andy Ashby.
You want me to leave or do you want me to interview you? Like
You're
I can't
Andy Ashby. Relax.
Right. I'm like, what the hell's your problem? Then I remember it was the 2006 playoffs between the Clippers and the Nuggets.
Oh.
And Kenyon Martin got ejected from a game. And I was in the Nuggets locker room after the game, you know, in one of those scrums. And I asked Kenyon Martin, who, to be fair, every other time I've ever dealt with him, he's been really nice. But Kenyon Martin is a really intimidating guy.
Yeah.
And he's got like a 3-mile stare. And, you know, this is back, you know, during Kenyon Martin's, you know, prime years. And, you know, he was known as, you know, not just like an all-star level player, but he was known as like one of the prime tough guys in the league.
Sure.
So I asked him what happened during this thing where he got ejected. And he looks at me and goes, "Nothing." And I just respond, I go, "Nothing?" And he goes, Nothing. And basically everybody in the scrum is afraid to ask another question, and he just walks off.
Did he have tattoos on his neck?
Yes.
He got the neck tattoos. That's
still does.
Every other time I've ever dealt with Kenyon Martin, really nice, really. But he was an intimidating presence when he wanted to be, and he really was in that moment.
So what do you think about this season? Because 1988 is a long time. It has been a while since the Dodgers
really
won
quick, some perspective. I looked this up. When last the Dodgers won a World Series, October 12th, 1988.
Yeah.
The number one movie in America, Alien Nation, with James Caan, among other people.
I find it amazing that movie made it to number one.
No, I guess it was a slow time. Number one song, Love Bites by Def Leppard.
Wow.
Number one album, Appetite for Destruction, Guns N' Roses.
Oof.
Clayton Kershaw, almost 7 months old.
Almost.
That's how long it's been.
What were you doing in 1988?
I was working at Santo Pietro's restaurant in Studio City, and the night Gibson hit the home run in game 1 off of Eckersley on the backdoor slider with the parking lights, the parking lights as the cars were leaving the ballpark as the ball sailed over Canseco's head in right field. I was working at a restaurant, and there was a pretty young lady who would come into the restaurant, and she wanted me to walk her to her car. So I walked her to her car, and as I was walking back in, the restaurant inside exploded.
Oh, no.
Running out onto the street. They were screaming and yelling and cheering. No, it exploded with excitement.
Right.
And he didn't mean it literally.
And it was just
lucky you, Roger. Thank God you survived.
The last time the Dodgers won the World Series, Mike Scioscia was their catcher.
I know.
Mike Marshall was in right field and dating Belinda Carlisle from the Go-Go's. That's how long ago it was.
Interesting tie into that. Belinda Carlisle, my first crush.
Get out.
No, absolutely. 100% my first crush.
I just watched the Showtime documentary on the Go-Go's. It's great.
Oh, yeah.
They were rock stars.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, they were the real deal rock stars.
Here's the question that everyone watching us right now wants to know, and I'll start with BK.
The question is, why are they talking about the Go-Go's? The Dodgers just won the World Series. But that's the show. So people by now know what they're getting into.
First female poster on your wall, Brian.
No, never had. I didn't have any. I went music and sports and this and that. I didn't have the Heather Locklear posters and stuff like that.
Wow.
Look, I wasn't saying I remember stealing the Victoria's Secret catalog when it came home. I'm not saying I didn't.
Who didn't?
Kids today don't understand how easy they had. To try to find a nipple back in our day, you had to work for it. And you might only be able to see through the little part in the lingerie. You really did have to use your imagination and dig through your dad's drawers. You had to work for it. Now it's just easy for everyone.
I tell you, when I was a kid, we played Little League in Bloomington, where I grew up here in California. It's out down the 10 freeway near Fontana. It's out there. And we would play baseball in an open field. It was just an open field with trash and everything everywhere. And in right center field was an old Playboy magazine. So I learned how to be an opposite field hitter quite well, because I would always go the other way, hit it to right center, and there was no one playing outfield. So I'd have to go chase it. And then you could sneak a peek of the magazine when you're out there right center.
Okay,
so
I'll do
the opposite field hitter.
Did you know, Andy? Did you know that Benny, our grandpa, you knew about the gigantic pile of old Playboys in there. So in the 80s, 80s, and
discovered them.
Right. Yeah, but it's an odd introduction into naked women, because a 60s and 70s Playboy looked different back then. The photography was different. The shape of the women was different. Everything about, spent some time down there.
Barbie Benton was a first-team All-Star back in those days. Ladies
Okay.
like that, Adrienne Barbeau.
Yes.
You can't teach what those ladies were doing back then.
Okay, no, but
You can't teach.
I got to rewind.
Okay.
So you hit opposite field.
Yeah.
And you go to right field. Do you go to right field on the way to rounding the bases, or do you go after you round the bases?
After you round the bases.
Okay, because I was going to say, otherwise everybody's just waiting for you to finish the. Like, I mean, you see how upset the other team gets when you just sneak a peek at your home run. Much less admire it. If everybody has to wait for you to look at the Playboy in right center, like that could get really
I'm
testy.
glad you brought that up, because don't we, like Randy Arozarena for the Tampa Bay Rays, didn't you really enjoy watching this guy during the World Series? We need more Arozarenas in the world.
He was great.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I was completely unfamiliar with who he was until the playoffs. I really had no idea who the guy was. He is so much fun. Like that guy is going to be great.
Yeah.
And I mean, for that matter, that Rays team,
Cardinals
you're going to
gave
see
away.
them. You're going to see them back in the series. Like that team could very well end up winning a championship sometime soon. Like they're really good.
They lost in 6 games to the best team on the planet, and they hit 233 as a team this season. 233, and they made it to Game 6 of the World Series. That's pretty impressive.
I actually think this was a series that did, and really a playoffs. It did a lot of good for baseball, moving through some of the impediments that they have of being just really old school and boring and staid and all that. Because you have. It was a lot of emotion being showed, but you had Tatis earlier in the playoffs doing amazing stuff, and all these home runs, and Arozarena, and Cody Bellinger, and Mookie Betts brings energy everywhere he goes.
He is one of the most charismatic, likable athletes I have. Like, I remember when my wife is a really big Dodger fan, but she doesn't really follow baseball. She just follows the Dodgers. So when the Dodgers made that trade, she was like, is this as big a deal as everybody's making it out to be? I'm like, oh my God, you have no idea. Yeah. I'm like, you have no idea how great this guy is. She fell in love with Mookie Betts in like 5 minutes. Like beyond being great, he is so enjoyable to root for. Like Dodger fans, this is your guy for the next decade plus.
Yeah, and him and Walker Buehler, and like again, this is what I go back to. Roger was saying before, like this is a likable team, and it's I feel too like now that they've finally got one, and the pressure is like, okay, you can restart the clock. They're going to be in the World Series at least a few more times over the next few years. The team is just too good. They've got plenty of money. They've got young players. It's like, I feel like now, like Kershaw could get 2 or 3, even I guess there's a sort of an irony to him not being able to do it when he's the elite guy on the team, but collecting 2 or 3 more as a really good pitcher on the back end of his career. Like it's just crazy how these things can turn. And, if Seager can keep doing stuff, and Bellinger can, he was not bad in the postseason for the first time, this year. Buehler is amazing, and May has potential of those, tight. I don't know if they can make their pants any tighter and all that. Maybe that's part of it, but like this is a team that could do this a lot over the next couple of years.
Did you guys kind of feel like in Mookie Betts? I don't know about you, but we knew Anthony Davis was a great player. But then we got to watch him every night, and you realize, oh my God, this guy's unbelievable, and the perfect guy to take the baton from LeBron in a couple of years. Same thing with Mookie Betts. I knew Mookie Betts was a great baseball player. I think he's the second best player in the game next to the kid that plays center field with my Angels. But the thing about Mookie Betts that's so gosh darn impressive, the little things, getting his before he baseball. Just those little fundamental things. He dominates the details, and that's what the great ones do. It's really fun to watch.
The defense in that Atlanta series was just stunning. Like, it's easy. Like, since they went down 3-1, the Dodgers were, almost perfect. But you forget, like, they were down 3-1 in that series. That series was almost over. And, Mookie Betts saved them repeatedly with defense.
Yeah.
And it's just, you got a guy named Mookie generally speaking, you're setting yourself up for success because
In
Mookies
LA.
are good.
In LA, in Hollywood, for the next 10 years. How great is that for Dodger fans?
Oh, also, whoa, is my sound
Yeah,
off?
I think no. Yeah, I think you popped onto some sort of weird thing.
Better now?
Marginally?
Better-ish?
Yeah.
Okay.
Use your inside voice.
Yeah.
Cabrera NHS points
Yeah.
out too, vindication for Dave Roberts. Like another guy who likable as hell.
Yep.
I mean, I don't know anybody who doesn't like Dave Roberts.
Well, even if you think he's bad at his job, you still like the person.
That's what I'm saying. He is a great, great guy, but somebody who has been under the microscope for so many years, despite actually being really successful by any measurement. And I'm not saying that none of the scrutiny has been warranted, but he's somebody now that to the point you were making before about how these guys may feel that pressure alleviated and might all of a sudden, see those floodgates open up where they can win one or two more over, say, the next 5 years. There's got to be a lot lifted off Dave Roberts' shoulders too.
Without question. But the other thing about that, guys, is you're doing your job on national television. Millions of people are scrutinizing every single move you make. Now, granted, he's made some curious moves in the past. Every manager has done it. Like tonight, Alex Wood, 2 perfect innings, and he got pulled out of the game. I thought Alex Wood was in a groove tonight, and I would have liked to have seen him continue. Can you imagine the narrative right now if Pedro Baez wouldn't have been good tonight? And when you use, 6 different pitchers like the Dodgers used tonight, usually one of those guys is going to have an off night. But tonight it just all went.
I think it was intentional. I think we saw tonight, and we did talk about with JP. Time is a flat circle. I don't remember anything or who I'm speaking to at any particular time. I'm very pleased that your name is on the screen, Roger. Otherwise, I forget who I'm talking to now.
Excuse me, Sparky.
But I think what they were doing was we'll see if all of these guys line up and they pitch well, great. But we want to have Buehler with, Kenley if we need him, Trinan if we need him, Gratterall if we're going to line up the guys that we need for Game 7 so we have the best possible options available to us. I think they were half punting this or willing to punt it, especially given how well Snell was pitching.
Right.
But again, you look up in the 6th inning and you're still only down by 1 run. It was unbelievable.
You kind of got that feeling that throughout the game tonight, the Dodgers were thinking, yeah, we still got tight pants in our back pocket for Game 7 if we need to get there,
Yeah, I don't know how they get. I mean, I remember in football, sometimes you kind of squeeze those things on, but I've never seen that with baseball. Between Buehler and May, I mean, it's like those things are painted on.
So now is the time that you can ask Walker Buehler that question about his pants trending. Now is the appropriate time. It was not the appropriate time coming right off a loss.
Right.
But now you can ask Walker Buehler, hey, remember when your pants were trending on Twitter? What do you think of that?
Are those baseball pants or are those skinny jeans that he wears out to the mound?
You know what they were, Roger? They were pants from the last time the Dodgers won the series in '88. That's how everybody wore them back then.
Let me ask you, though, because you had said that you think that Mike Trout is the best player in baseball, and that's obviously not a controversial opinion.
Right.
How much separation do you think that there is actually between those guys? Because it's unquestionably one of the two between Mookie and Trout.
And the other thing is it's such a streaky game, which is one of the things I think that Kevin Cash blew tonight because these guys get on a roll. And you got to ride them. When your guys are hot, you got to ride them. He didn't ride Blake Snell tonight. But I've seen Mike Trout it's like he's hitting a beach ball coming up to the plate. He's jumping off the wall like Spider-Man making plays. I've been out at spring training every year for the last 12 years, and I show up at the field at 7:30 in the morning, and who's in center field working on his game but the best player in baseball? They're so good. It's like splitting hairs at this point. And, it all depends on who's hot at that particular time. And I've seen Mike Trout when he's absolutely on fire, seen him go through some tough times as well. But Mookie Betts I mean, if you're going to go Mike Trout or Mookie Betts, can't go wrong with either guy.
I think the biggest. I mean, I think Trout is, I think, the best player in baseball. The difference is just sort of if you're not a diehard and you just a person tuning in. I've had a few conversations with him. He is a very nice guy, but he doesn't exude the same kind of whatever it is, exuberance or exuberance, like charisma, whatever it is, as Mookie. It's just not his personality. It's not a knock on Trout, but there's an animation to Mookie Betts that I think if you're somebody who tunes in for the World Series or somebody who tunes in for the playoffs, it's going to grab you in ways that Trout doesn't. Like, you got to watch Mike Trout. Maybe not every day. He kind of jumps off the screen anyway, but like to really appreciate just how good he is, like most baseball players, you have to watch him every day. Like you said with Mookie, like you see it with LeBron, you see it with Anthony Davis, and you get it. Like, okay, I knew that somebody told me they were good. And I think that's the biggest difference between those guys. Geez, what don't they do? I mean, they both play defense, they both run, they both hit. I don't know what there is.
A little something on Mike Trout, and I have the honor and pleasure of often hosting team events for the Angels. Like, we'll go out to a hospital or we'll go out to an elementary school, and the players will come out, and you watch these Major League Baseball players just make some kid's day, which is absolutely amazing. And I've seen Mike Trout do some things that really there was nobody else around, but I was watching him make a kid's day, a Make-A-Wish kid, or Mike Trout in the on-deck circle of a major league game during a game, walk a ball over to a special needs kid in the crowd. I'll never forget this conversation I had with Craig Landis, Mike's agent, when Mike was in the middle of that negotiation for that unbelievable contract he signed to be with the Halos for the next 12 years. And here's something a lot of people don't know about Mike Trout. Children's Hospital, Chalk, down in Orange County. There's a lot of cancer patients down there that Mike Trout visits with other Angel players on a regular basis. And Craig Landis told me that while they were negotiating, and they were getting a little closer, they were getting close and ready to settle this thing, he got a phone call from Mike Trout. And he said, I want you to get on the phone right now and call John Carpino, the team president of the Angels, and lock this up. Let's get it done, because I can't leave the kids. And Craig Landis said, the kids? You mean the young players in the clubhouse, the young kids in the locker room? What kids are you referring to? And Mike Trout said, I can't leave those kids at Chalk Hospital, the cancer patients that I visit a couple of times a month.
Yeah, I mean,
he's just a great kid.
It gets to what we were talking about before. These are good dudes, generally speaking. They're good dudes who try to do the right thing. I do wish he had a chance to play more. We still have the game coming up. We have to talk about this Turner thing because it's just too weird. So Justin Turner is pulled from the game in the 8th, correct? I have that correct. And like, guys have been reconstructing the timeline. Jeff Passan has done a little bit of it. Ken Rosenthal has been putting it back together. And apparently what happened was there was an inconclusive positive test yesterday. They were all retested again today. The test comes back in the 8th inning, and the Dodgers are told that Turner has to be pulled, and they pull him. Now, there are a lot, the conspiracy theorists, like, the Dodgers knew they were hiding it. I don't buy that. I think, the Dodgers don't control that process. Major League Baseball does and all that. But it's very strange to me, first of all, that, like, if you have an inconclusive positive test from the day before.
I'm shocked he was allowed
to
play.
Like that's, and what would have happened if there was a game 7? Like, do they have to stop and wait a day and let everybody get what happens if the Dodgers don't win this game?
It's really, really shocking that he was actually allowed to play. Because we've seen athletes in other sports have to be isolated because of inconclusive tests, and then fortunately a lot of them have turned out to be either false positives or they've been retested and they were negative, whatever. But I can't recall, maybe I'm missing it, I can't recall a time where during this period an athlete had an inconclusive test and wasn't isolated. I just can't remember one.
Was he on the field celebrating? Did he come out?
That was, and I got to say, I understand the impulse, and I understand like his teammates wanted him out there. He wanted to be out there. I get it. It's a terrible look. And I at this point in our collective COVID journey, I try very hard not to be hyper reactionary. I don't want to be alarmist. Like I believe if people are outside and they're wearing masks and they're more than 6 feet away from each other, like there are a lot of things that you can do safely right now. It is a terrible look to have Justin Turner out on the field celebrating with his teammates, particularly sitting down there. And I don't think they were all wearing masks the whole time. It is a bad look. And I feel terrible for Turner that he couldn't do it, but he shouldn't have been out on the field.
And there's another great kid. I mean, Justin Turner.
He's fantastic.
The pride of Mayfair High School right here in Lakewood.
It is so easy to forget now that he was an absolute afterthought signing. Like it was he was a reclamation project. Nobody thought anything of the Dodgers bringing in Justin Turner. Like if memory serves, that wasn't even a guaranteed contract.
I don't believe it was. The only thing that gives you confidence, Roger, there is like the Mets let him go, and therefore you could just assume that they missed something. But other than that, there was no reason to believe that this was going to turn out anything. Like, again, likable team with likable players. I realize it's LA and everybody wants to be Hollywood. That is not this group of dudes.
And how about Max Muncy? Anybody?
Yes.
Muncy. And the guy's turned into a badass. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. He's terrific.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember I was skeptical after that first season. I'm like, okay, was this a fluke or, was this the blip? And no, I mean, he is a legit player.
I was 100% sure it was like when that it was fluky. 100% sure. It was Brady Anderson hitting 48 home runs or whatever that was. I mean, I think he had a little help, but I mean, that's what I was 100% sure that was Max Muncy.
Yeah, there's eventually going to be more reporting on this story with Justin Turner, and like Brian had said, there's going to be a timeline that comes out, and I hate even going here because this is such a great day for Dodger fans. It's such a great day for the city, and like in the last few weeks, Los Angeles has just owned sports, and it's awesome. Like it's really fun. But there's going to be some stuff that comes out from this story that a lot of people aren't going to look good. And I'm going to hate to see that because it's something that people are going to remember as part of this whole experience. Yep. And that sucks.
And it's unavoidable. Like you have to cover this part of the story. It's not like
it's just it's going to be a part that people aren't going to enjoy, but unfortunately it's going to happen. Before we get to the game, you're working, Roger, as a consultant on a basketball show, and there's some interesting characters involved with this.
This is the best story ever. My old roommate and my dearest friend in the world is an actor by the name of John Stamos, who was Uncle Jesse on Full House, who we all
I don't think he is familiar with his work.
Okay, so he
does great work with knitting needles.
Oh, terrific. Shot that. I'll tell you a great story about that commercial, by the way. But anyway. He calls me about a year ago now, and he says, "Hey, I got great news. I got a new show. It's a David Kelly series." And I'm like, "David Kelly, the guy's like the top in television." Yeah, but the only problem is I play a basketball coach. Now, you have to understand, John Stamos knows nothing about sports.
At all?
We lived together for 13 years. We were roommates here in LA. Here's all you need to know about John Stamos' sports knowledge. I put up a gigantic poster over my bed years ago of the Bambino, George Herman, Babe Ruth, baseball legend. It's above my bed. And Stamos would always come in at like 6 a.m. wanting to work out before he went to Full House, before he went to work. He walks into my room. There's the poster of Babe Ruth. And he walks into my room and he says, "Wait a minute. I didn't know. Do you like guys? Why do you have that poster?" and he says to me, "Why do you have that poster of Willie Mays above your bed?"
Oh no.
Oh man, that's terrible on a lot of levels.
Wow.
He does bring up an interesting point though. Was that like a considerable lure for the ladies when you bring them home and you get the Babe Ruth poster above your bed?
He's the Bambino. How do you lose? But anyway.
Wow.
So John gets he gets a David Kelly series. It's called Big Shot. He plays a basketball coach. So he has me as his kind of unofficial basketball consultant. We talk basketball nonstop. And here's the best part of this story. I get a call a couple of months ago, and he says, "Hey, do you know anything about the Clippers? You know what that is?" And I'm like, "You mean the NBA, the LA Clippers?" "Yeah, yeah. Do you know it? Do you know about them?" And I said, "Yeah, they're a pretty good team this year. I think they're going to do well with these new superstar free agents they have." And he goes, "Yeah, okay, but do you know Jerry East?" And I said, "Do I know Jerry East?"
Oh my God.
And I said, "No,
Now
I
that
don't
you're
know."
making that up.
"No, I'm not. You can call Stamos right now and get him on the phone." And I said, you don't mean Jerry West, do you?" And he goes, "Oh my God, yeah, I'm sorry. That's it. Do you know Jerry West?" He wants me to come to Clippers practice and we can watch the Clippers and talk basketball. Do you want to come with me? Now, guys, when you walk into my office, the first thing you see is a poster of
Jerry East.
logo, Jerry East. We got to go to a Clipper practice and sit with Jerry West for 4 hours. And the first thing the logo said to us when we walked in was, "You can ask me anything you want, whatever you want to talk about, let's go." So I basically had the logo of the NBA at my side for 4 hours.
That's really good.
Basketball. It was unbelievable.
That's really good.
With the one guy on the planet who had literally no ability to appreciate it.
No clue. Jerry East. Jerry, unbelievable.
You know what though? This reinforces something that I tell people all the time. We in sports fans, people who do this, wildly overestimate how much the rest of the world pays attention to what we do.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, wildly.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. A quick story. I've got two friends, right? Both of us. We have two good friends that are working actors, but neither of them follow sports at all. And one of them, this was in like the late 90s, was in a Chunky Soup commercial. And he tells me, I'm in a commercial with a football player. I'm like, "Oh, really? Who?" He's like, "Terrell Davis." He's like, "Is that a big deal?" It's like, "Is this guy?" I'm like,
Yeah.
He might be like the best at his position in the game, like at the moment. And he's like, "Oh, really? Like, do people know who he is?" I'm like, "Yes, he's a massive star." Had no idea. Then another friend of mine does a commercial. Remember the commercial LeBron did for one of the insurance companies, I think, where he's playing a lawyer in a courtroom, and there's a guy faking an injury with a neck brace, and he throws a basketball to the guy, and the guy catches it. That's how LeBron busts him. Our friend is the guy who catches the ball. And he actually called me before he started shooting this thing to find out a little bit about LeBron, like, say, what position does he play? Who does he play for? And, he wanted to confirm with me, LeBron's really good, right? I'm like, yes, LeBron's quite good. He said the first time LeBron threw the ball at him, it came so fast he ducked. Oh, wow. Like it just scared the shit out of him. And he had to tell LeBron, like, "Look, I know this seems like a softball pass to you. I need you to take it down a little
softer."
And the first time I ever met LeBron, and I think he was still with the Cavs, I told him this after a scrum, and he started laughing. He's like, "Yeah, that guy was not quite ready." But yeah, I mean, people don't know this stuff. Like there are a lot of people, like if you don't follow sports, you really have no reason.
I'm willing to bet there are, if not more, almost as many people in LA who do not know who LeBron James and Anthony Davis are as there are people who do. And it seems crazy to say that out loud, but I am 100% convinced it's true.
I have held up every show I've ever worked on the set because of sports trivia. On the set of Blind Date, my old dating show, we would shoot every other Saturday for about 14 hours, okay? And we would do like the equivalent of 12 shows. It took us about 14 hours to do that. The reason it took 14 hours, because for 6 of those hours, I was holding things up by playing sports trivia with the guys on the crew. But it's amazing what I thought was such an easy sports question that people have no idea what I was talking about. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Real quick before, and it's a good segue, by the way, when you mention Blind Date. And yes, as the kid from NYC points out, Blind Date on UPN, post-game chat Blind Date was awesome. Our mom really likes basketball, and she really likes the Lakers, but she follows them, if you even want to call it following them, from St. Louis. She does the best that she can. That's where we grew up. That's where she lives. And she never really followed the Lakers at all until the Kobe Shaq years. And it was really because I was out here and I was a big fan, and she was just trying to have things to talk about with her son halfway across the country. And she likes basketball anyway, but her knowledge of the Lakers goes no further back than Kobe Shaq. So one time she's in LA visiting, and she's watching either pre or post on Spectrum from a Laker game because she'd watched the game, and she sees James Worthy. And after James doing either pre or post, I'm talking with her, and she's like, James Worthy is so great on Spectrum. Like, he's really funny, and he breaks things down really great, and he's really smart. Like, he's just really great at his job. I'm like, yeah, James is awesome. He's awesome. How do they find him? Where do they find James Worthy? Mom,
open audition, open casting call.
Nailed it. Absolutely nailed his audition for Spectrum. She had no idea who James Worthy was. And this is somebody who likes the Lakers, but no clue.
Yeah, God bless her. God bless her.
So speaking of blind date, I've got a game for you guys to play, and it is a trivia game, a quiz game, inspired loosely from your time, Roger, hosting Blind Date. Okay. I'm going to ask you guys some questions from movies that either involve dating or blind characters, one or the other. And I'm going to quiz you guys. And
is this a shout your name out?
No.
Multiple choice. Okay.
Multiple choice. You guys each get. I find over virtual your name is your buzzer too chaotic.
Okay.
But anyway.
Andy prefers a calm game. I'm going every answer for me is that Vin Diesel movie.
We begin. Which of these movies are not in the top 5 for romantic comedies domestic box office?
Okay.
Brian will go first. My Big Fat Greek Wedding, Pretty Woman, There's Something About Mary, Jerry Maguire. Brian goes first.
Give me that list again.
My Big Fat Greek Wedding, Pretty Woman, There's Something About Mary, Jerry Maguire. Which of these are not
Jerry Maguire?
The top 5? Roger.
I'm gonna go My Big Fat Greek Wedding.
Oh, that was like number 1.
That is number 1. My Big Fat Greek Wedding.
That made $1 zillion.
$241 million to be exact.
Not drachma.
Jerry Maguire outside the top 5 with 154 million. Pretty Woman 178. There's Something About Mary 176. Brian up 1-0.
You should know, Roger. We play these games to win. We do not show sympathy or anything to our guests here.
Before we get to the second question,
you had that.
It's still here.
Wow. Those.
Please tell me that's not the first thing your future wife saw when you guys met. That's not what you did. I mean, God bless her if it is.
Wow, some lucky ladies coming
that's
home.
Hot. That is
lucky ladies coming home with Roger Lodge.
You kids got my work done for me right there. All right, what's question number 2?
What is the real name of the man who becomes Daredevil, the blind superhero? Matt Murdock, Mike Milligan, Mark Mitchell, Moses McKnight.
Moses Malone.
Mitchell. He played for the Cavs. Oh, that was Mike Mitchell. Can you give me those names one more time?
Matt Murdock, Mike Milligan, Mark Mitchell, Moses McKnight.
That's Mike Milligan.
I'm going. I want the answer to be Moses McKnight. So that's what I'm going with.
It's actually Matt Murdock. I made up Moses. And Mike Milligan is a character on Fargo, the TV show. Which actor was not considered for Sam Baldwin, the character played by Tom Hanks in Sleepless in Seattle? Dennis Quaid, John Ritter, Harrison Ford, Michael Keaton. Brian goes first. Not considered for the role played by Tom Hanks.
I will say Harrison Ford.
Roger.
I'm going. Harrison Ford is the obvious answer there, but I'll go John Ritter.
Oh, you should have gone with the obvious answer. It's Harrison Ford. The other three were all
down 2-0.
Yeah,
down 2-0.
Wow.
True Still or one false? Of my great throwaway lines on any Letterman episode ever. You get yourself a good deal down there at Harrison Ford.
True or false? Roger's going first on this one. True or false? Donald Trump has a brief appearance in Scent of a Woman, which was centered around Al Pacino's blind character?
Hooah!
I'll go true.
I think that's false.
The answer is false. It was almost true, though. According to Chris O'Donnell, when the production was permitted to film at Manhattan's Plaza Hotel, they agreed to allow a cameo by the then owner Donald Trump with wife then Marla Maples. The scene was ultimately cut, though. Next question goes to Brian first. Which of these stars, Brian up 3-0, which of these stars from Notting Hill received Golden Globe nominations for their performances? Julia Roberts, Hugh Grant, both or neither?
Hugh Grant.
Neither.
It's both. They both got Golden. Remember, the Golden Globes, everybody gets nominated. When in doubt, guess everybody.
It's the 4th grade soccer show of awards.
Brian's still up 3-0. Roger's going first on this one. Gwyneth Paltrow won Best Actress for the romantic comedy Shakespeare in Love.
Yes.
Who else in the cast won an Oscar for that movie? Jeffrey Rush, Tom Wilkinson, Judi Dench, or Joseph Fiennes?
Judi Dench.
Joseph Fiennes.
It's Judi Dench. It was a cameo. Only about
Roger
6.
on the board.
I'm on the board, baby.
Like the Dodgers, once you get one, it's easy to get more.
Only about 6 total minutes of screen time, but she won an Oscar for it. A couple more. Which band is on the T-shirt John Cusack is wearing during his first kickboxing workout in the romantic comedy Say Anything?
Kiss.
Brian's going first. Fishbone, The Clash, Husker Du, Red Hot Chili Peppers.
I think it's The Clash.
No, it's Red Hot Chili Peppers. Come on.
No, it's The Clash. It actually is The Clash.
You said that with such an arrogant tone, Roger.
Now, this is the last question. Brian up 4-0, but Roger
4-1.
4-1. As luck would have it, just pure happenstance, this last question happens to be worth 4. So, so you could still win it.
Still in it.
Gene Wilder and Richard Pryor teamed up in a god-awful movie, See No Evil, Hear No Evil, about a blind man, Richard Pryor, and a deaf man, Gene Wilder, who witness a murder. According to Gene Wilder's autobiography, how many times did he originally turn down the script because of its depiction of blind and deaf people? Once, twice, 3 times. He never turned it down. He only realized how funny it was, or how unfunny it was, once filming began.
Yeah, it was no stir crazy. I'll say
no, it was not.
I'll say he never turned it down.
I will say 3.
Oh, the answer is twice. He turned it down twice before eventually, I guess, getting a big enough paycheck that he decided to overlook the depiction of blind and deaf people.
Into a win here, Roger, but I'll take it.
This is the greatest game ever invented. That's so much fun.
The kid from NYC 98 times.
No, the correct answer is 1 too few.
It is a really,
if you
really
thought this
bad
game
movie.
was good, Roger, you should have missed last night when we had JP on. We played Name That Horn.
Oh, there's a game right there.
Oh, yeah.
Love
Be
it.
surprised what you can do with horns. Or maybe you wouldn't be. I don't know.
This was fun. This was really fun. Before we let you go, someone really quick wants to ask a question, post-game chat. Do you have a favorite episode of Blind Date?
Wow. You know, there is, because it's for a crazy reason that you wouldn't even think of. See, I never met any of the daters, and people used to ask me all the time, boy, you meet all those girls on Blind Date. No, I would come in and write what I was going to say and watch. I'd watch the date.
Yeah.
100 times. I was a producer on the show, so I had to know what clips we were going to use and what I was going to say coming out of that wacky video. There was a guy that came on our show 4 times, and all 4 times he got blistering drunk, mumbled his way through a date from hell, got rejected all 4 times, and made his way every single date onto the Blind Date wall of shame, or had to take the wall of shame.
I remember the wall of shame.
He walked up to me in a Ralph's grocery store in Sherman Oaks, California one night, and he was completely stone cold sober, And he said to me, Roger, I just want to shake your hand and thank you for changing my life, because the 4 times I came on your show, you made fun of me every single time. And ever since the last episode, I haven't had a sip of alcohol yet since.
Oh, that's a great story.
Blind date got me sober, and I just wanted to thank you for that.
Yeah,
that is
I tell you what,
story.
it's been so much easier to be around Andy since then.
Thank you, Roger.
He even took down the Babe Ruth poster he used to keep above his bed.
Roger, this whole episode and inviting you on was just really a big, long setup for me to say thank you. I wanted to do it face to face.
And let me tell you guys something before I get out of here, because you have no idea that I have been big fans of both of yours for a long time. I've been in Southern California my entire life. And when you guys started coming up on the radio over at ESPN Radio, whenever the Kamenetzkys were sitting in, I would always go out of my way to make sure I was listening, because you guys do it. You're the hard work that you put into what you do is so gosh darn evident. So I'm a big fan, and I was thrilled to be able to do this. So thanks so much.
Well, thank you.
That means a lot, man.
Yeah, at some point you were saying to yourself, one day there will be a Twitter, and one day these guys will have a late night show, and damn it, I'm going to be on that thing. But
that's really nice,
fun.
man.
We appreciate it, and we appreciate the support. We appreciate all of it. Roger Lodge tonight, AM 8:30, the Sports Lodge drive time every day. Make sure you're tuning in. George Sedano going to talk a little Dodgers tomorrow. Ted Wynn from The Athletic, and just does fantastic work breaking down the NFL and video and all that kind of stuff. He's going to be by on Thursday and Friday. TBD. That just means we don't know yet. It's not. We're not teasing anything. It's not a super surprise.
Can we make a blind date right now? Can you guys someday, very, very soon, both of you come into the Sports Lodge and we can do my afternoon drive radio show here?
We'd love to.
That would be awesome. Absolutely.
All right.
That would be fantastic. No, thank you, Roger. We really appreciate it, man. Thank you very much. This was fun.
All right.
This was
we'll see everybody tomorrow.
Thank you, Needle.
Oh, snuck that in there.
Stop.